Hello and welcome to Healthy Veins, Healthy Legs, the only radio program that will give you a leg up on ways to identify and get help for ailments of the leg that can not only be cosmetically bothersome, but could actually be a big threat to your overall health and well-being. Now, here's your host, Mike Buck, and Hawaii's senior vein specialist and vascular surgeon, Dr. Robert Kistner.
Hello and welcome once again to the, like the man said, Healthy Veins, Healthy Legs. We're here for the next hour or so to sort of get you in touch with yourself. You haven't looked at your legs lately, have you? And as you know, on this program, we talk about everything, about vascular health all the time. And most of the time, Dr. Kistner is explaining the different categories and classes and stages of venous disease. Well, you don't have to have venous disease to listen to a vein show, Doc. And today, we're going to talk a little bit maybe about prevention or about preparation. And we talk a lot on the program about what you do to treat a varicose vein condition or a problem, and quite often you begin the conversation by compression. We got to have compression.
Yeah, well, it's a funny thing. We are talking about using it with people who have a vein problem, but in our office where we're all healthy veins, we all wear stocking all the time because it makes us feel better throughout the long-standing day when we're on our feet all the time. And this is a range of people all the way from the 20s up to the 200s, about my age.
What I think is important here is it, and particularly in a tropical climate like where we are, is it sometimes people don't want to wear these things, and particularly if they haven't been prescribed. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to meet somebody from a company that specializes in compression stockings for people that are in good shape. In other words, people that want to get more out of their circulation or more out of their legs. And so that's kind of an interesting concept. That's not what we usually talk about.
Well, we get to talk to a gentleman who's really knowledgeable about using stockings for the healthy performance adult, and not only for the performance person. So we can ask him who the target population is.
Okay, our guest is from CEP Compression Sportswear. What's that all about? We'll tell you about that. It's a performance brand. In other words, I guess also, and we'll talk about therapy and treatment brand, but this is a performance brand. And did you think for a minute that you could get some device to help your performance? These are compression socks and sleeves. And to tell us all about this from the CEP Compression Sportswear Company is Brant Ferguson, joining us from what part of the country? I'm not quite sure. Brant, welcome to the program. Where are you?
Hi, gentlemen. How you doing? I'm in San Diego.
Oh, that's not too bad. We're only a couple hours different. I thought maybe we were keeping you up back there on the East Coast. San Diego is very much like Hawaii. Have you been here to Hawaii? Could you verify that?
Yeah, a little less humid over here, but we share the same Pacific Ocean, I think. Surfing is a big deal, and Ironman triathlon is a big deal over here as well, which is big in Hawaii.
Well, as you know, that we look forward to our marathon every year, and we have all kinds of running events pretty much year-round here in Hawaii. And when I first learned about you through Dr. Kistner, I became enthralled by the thought of, wait a minute, is this preventative maintenance? Is this performance enhancing? How would you explain what the CEP company is all about?
Well, CEP is the performance brand of a German company called Medi. Mm-hmm. And Medi is one of the world leaders in compression technologies for compression hosiery.
Which I have some Medis. I have some Medis on right now.
I think you do.
Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So CEP was created as a brand to take their 60-plus years of knitting technology for compression and offer those same benefits to a healthy consumer over the counter, basically, a runner, a triathlete, a cyclist, anybody that's looking for basically a recovery and a fresher legs during activity, basically.
Bob often says in our discussions, Dr. Kistner says, look, you can get over-the-counter stuff, and that's great. But this is over-the-counter stuff. But there's a huge, big difference. Maybe you should explain this. I mean, I know people that they take a look at a pair of performance compression stockings, whether it be over-the-counter or through prescription, and they gag. How come this stuff is so expensive? Can you sort of explain, even though it looks like a sock, it's maybe it doesn't walk and talk, and it's not a duck, it's a different thing, it's a different garment?
Well, yeah, I mean, our socks meet the same compression requirements that are regulated, that the Medi product is basically regulated by. We meet a international standard for manufacturing that makes sure that our product is consistent every single time we knit a compression stocking. The exact same way that a Medi stocking is validated through the international standards of manufacture. The difference is that we use a more performance-based yarn. It's a more nylon-based performance yarn. It's a little bit more robust, so it's going to feel more like a performance sock when you wear it versus more of a nylon type of a hose that a lot of the Medi comfort types of products are more sheer in nature. This is going to feel like a knee-high soccer sock or a performance sock, basketball sock, but you're going to have that graduated compression technology that Medi and TGP are so known for.
You know, Dr. Kistner, maybe you can explain, and you and Brent can actually talk about this. At which point does somebody decide, I'm going to do this? Do they decide before the fact or after the fact? Because like I said earlier, a lot of the compression stockings that we talk about are to talk about somebody that is in vein disrepair rather than wanting to perform better.
Well, I think this is to make a healthy person perhaps perform better, but and certainly to feel better. And be interested to hear, Brant, as you go along, if you could tell us, there's some data, I think, about performance in addition to how people feel with the stocking.
Absolutely. The performance aspects of the business and of the product itself were touch points for us when we first started the brand about 5-6 years ago, because people really wanted to know what our compression stock is going to do for me when I'm running or when I'm active. And there were some initial studies that were done back in 2006 and 2007 that basically took athletes and put them on a treadmill and ran them at a sub-maximal heart rate and basically looked at their efficiencies based on their ability to process oxygen and their ability to maintain a heart rate and to go a certain speed.
In other words, the compression, which aids in the blood flow returning, going back up after, especially when you're erect and when you're running, that this acts as an outer help, as an outer pump.
It's basically acting as an assist to your existing venous return system. Mm-hmm. Basically, your leg supports at the bottom of your body. While you're running, you're basically throwing your leg at the ground, increasing the gravity in your leg as you throw it to the ground, like a G-force for your foot, basically. And you're not really doing a whole lot to help bring blood flow back, other than your cardiovascular system pumping more arterial blood flow or supply blood back out to the muscle. So what this does is basically help our venous return by helping to activate the valving systems inside of your venous system and helping to make that return more effective or more efficient as it brings the waste blood back up through your body.
Doc, think of how interesting that would be if everybody did this. I mean, we're talking about athletes, and I'm going to guess, Brent, that you've had a lot of testimony and endorsement by athletes that say, okay, I was doing this and my performance was enhanced by this. I think athletes are a little bit more finely tuned to their bodies, what's going on with them, than some of us that aren't so performance-oriented. What sort of feedback do you get from people once they start wearing them? When can and if they can tell a difference?
Well, in reality, the way that we actually introduce our product to the end consumer is actually quite unique because it doesn't come by way of blood flow. What really happens is you get a lot of people with overuse injuries that are training for a half marathon or a marathon, and they start to develop shin splints or calf cramps or Achilles pain, and they are introduced to compression as a way to help them relieve that pain. Through the process of wearing the product, they come to realize that this increase in blood flow and the stabilization of the muscles in the lower leg is really helping them to both recover and to have prolonged freshness in their legs at the later stages of their training or of their race day event.
Brent, it strikes me in Hawaii, so many people say they can't use support stockings because they're too hot. And now you're putting them on performance athletes that really work up a sweat. Do they complain of wet legs when they wear the stockings? Or what's the answer to that?
That's a very good point. And I think it really comes a lot down to the customer itself. If you have a customer base that's used to being warm and they're used to sweating, like the CEP customer is, they're used to training and being active, then increased heat is something that they're kind of used to. They're incorporating technical fabrics in their workout apparel. They're hydrating on a regular basis, and the compression products just are something that they're adopting from a garment standpoint. But when we actually did a heat study, what we actually found was that when a CEP sock is wet, it actually helps cool the area, the lower leg, by upwards to about 7 degrees because we have evaporation taking place. If your leg is just covered in sweat, it takes a period of time for that sweat to evaporate. The structure of the sock, the knitted structure of the sock is going to help pull that moisture into this web of nylon and lycra and increasing the surface area and then allowing it to dry much faster than if it was just sitting on your leg.
So it's an insulator in a way.
Yeah, in a cold condition,
yeah.
The same thing can be of an effect. It can actually trap heat in a cold environment where you're not actually generating a whole lot of moisture or a whole lot of sweat inside of a ski boot, for instance, and actually have an increase in temperature to maintain warmth.
Out of curiosity, I'm guessing that this was originally the concept was to treat the long use, running athlete. But what about people that say like in other sports, like maybe football, where you got a couple of hours of practice every day? Is this someday going to be incorporated into other forms? I mean, once we've learned from the running world, I mean, what about tennis players? What about what about hikers? What about football players?
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, and that is that the opportunity for the benefits for compression to the general population is what our real aim is. We want to bring an increased level of knowledge to the general consumer so that they have an understanding that compression therapy isn't just for somebody with circulatory disease. You don't have to go to a vein clinic, for instance, to be diagnosed or to be told you need to wear compression. But it's a general health practice or general health product that with education we can reach more people.
Well, in our program, the Healthy Veins, Healthy Legs program, we're dealing with people that are looking for help. But I'm wondering what the aha moment is for an athlete or for a jogger or for a triathlete to be able to seek this out and look at it. I mean, outside of a program like this, how do you get the effort? How do you get the word out about the CEP products?
Well, we're very active in the consumer marketplace. In fact, we're sold in over 1,400 specialty retail stores across the country, and a couple of those are right there in Hawaii. Primarily, we're sold in running specialty retail stores where you would go to get a pair of nicer running shoes, or to be even a triathlon retail store in town that you would go to get fit for a triathlon bike or a high-end road bike. These stores have staff that are educated and understand the benefits of the product and have the ability to take the time to really work with the customer on it. On top of that, we're at over 150 marathon events worldwide, participating in those events as either a sponsor or at the expo itself. The Rock and Roll Marathon Series is a property that we're heavily invested in. We have over 30 marathon and half marathon events worldwide that we are a major sponsor.
Doc, maybe you and Brent can talk about the difference between what they have, this recreational aid, and what you prescribe to a patient that needs this compression. What are the difference between the stocking like I wear and what we're talking about here with him?
Well, I was going to ask Brent. I noticed that you have a compression measurement on it, and it's like a class 1, 24 millimeters of mercury at the ankle, I think. Was that arrived at by a study, or was it just a first choice, or do you have any reason that it's at that compression level, Brent?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. We target a class 1 compression rating on the product, which means we're going to fit that 20 to 30 millimeters of mercury of pressure in the stocking, which is the way that we measure in the industry on the whole, measures how tight the product is against the body. And by medical standards, there's certain classifications of compression that are for certain types of circulatory illness, for instance. That class 1 category is where we really start to talk about affecting the venous system. The 24 millimeters is a target measurement that we try to hit in the ankle area, mainly because it's right in the middle of the 20 to 30 compression range for a class 1 compression, and that allows us to fit a broader range of people while still maintaining that class 1 compression at the ankle. The other side of that is that we want to have a little bit higher level of compression at the ankle because of the impact when you're running or when you're active. When you're running it and you're moving down the road and you're moving your foot to the ground, you're going to have an increased level of pressure on each leg as you're moving down the road, and we want to make sure we're hitting the correct compression level to help that venous return.
Now, I got one thing, because as not only am I the host, Brent, but I'm a patient. And I know, Doc, that you can explain to the listener and to me that you have this device that you put inside my stocking that actually measures this pressure. And the numbers don't mean to me this, this 20% and this 20, it doesn't mean anything. It just means what I'm supposed to have. How does that compare with, say, the stockings I wear and the ones that Brant's talking about here with their, with the amount of pressure?
Well, it fits right in. This would be the usual beginning compression that we might do for somebody with varicose veins. But, talking about the compression pressure, probably where we're going with the whole industry is much, much more measurement of what pressure we're putting on people for various reasons. And it's really interesting to hear that Brand has data indicating that the Class 1 stocking improves performance in the healthy person. And I just wonder, though, does that compare to data that a different pressure doesn't have the same result, Brand, or not?
The studies that we did were all based on a Class 1 compression garment.
I see.
So,
okay, yeah.
So, I'm sure you could have other data that could support different claims.
Sure.
But our aim was to hit the sweet spot of where Medi compression really lives and breathes for the population, and that's really our Class 1 category.
So for the public, though, the Class 1 compression stocking not only good in early disease, but it's also good in the healthy person, as per your studies. I think that's the point worth making.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe on top of that, you can explain, for instance, when you get a prescription and you go to the dispenser of these stockings like I use, like your treatment stockings, how do they compare in price and in availability? And what sort of knowledge does somebody have to have at the store end to be able to explain and measure me and decide what stocking I need?
Well, I think if you go to one of your local pharmacies that would be a Medi customer, you're going to have a staff that ranges from people that work with people, lymphedema type patients, all the way to circulatory type patients on the compression side of the business.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be much more knowledgeable from a clinical standpoint to the levels of compression, the fitting process, whether it's an off-the-shelf product or even a custom product, which is done a lot of the times with these types of clinics. Whereas at a specialty retail store, it's going to be a little bit more general information. You're not talking to somebody that's selling compression all day, every day. They might be doing a shoe fitting, selling a heart rate monitor watch, doing nutrition, and then also assisting with the sale of a compression stocking.
Okay, and that means, Bob, that somebody you now see. Dr. Kistner often mentions this, Brent, and that is those that don't have issues, but as they age, let's say you're doing a lot of traveling, it's a good idea to have some compression. Now, you may not have one prescribed to you because you may not be at an advanced stage of venous disease where you need them, but traveling with them is a good idea. What about these stockings? Are these also, would they double up as something good to travel in?
Air travel is a major focus for us because so many of us spend time at the airport and on planes. And there's actually a study that was done by the National Institute of Health that reported that about 85% of all the DVTs that happen from air travel are actually in endurance type of athletes. These are people that are typically training for instance, the Honolulu Marathon. Mm-hmm. They're typically dehydrated at any point in time because of the amount of training they're doing. They're getting on an airplane where their legs are sitting at some kind of a stasis. They're not moving them. And then they're asked to sit there for a long period of time, which is basically creating the perfect opportunity for some kind of a thrombosis or just general edema in the lower portion of the leg. So even an everyday support hose that would be in a 15 millimeter of compression type of a style, a lower level of compression is going to assist in reducing the amount of swelling or edema in the lower leg, which in effect will help your legs feel fresher when you get off the plane.
Which comes to a lot of us as to show that Dr. Kistner has not been crying wolf all this time, that this is a very desirable way to do this. And Doc, maybe that, to further explain this, that what about, we talk about people that arrive here with an episode and come to your clinic or somewhere else, and what about we that travel? How dehydrated does an athlete get after doing the marathon, and then the next day he's got to jump on a plane, or maybe the same day to get back to work on the mainland?
Yeah, well, I don't know any data. I don't know any facts or even studies about that particular point. But it makes sense, and not only that, that a lot of those persons may have some form of injury in the leg, and they might be additionally prone to develop a blood clot on their travels. So it's a point worth considering, but I don't think we have data about it, Mike, at this point. But I really think that everything you're saying, Brent, reinforces pretty much what we're doing, treating the people who have a venous problem, and that is that wearing additional compression on the lower extremity, it seems to be something that improves health, improves performance, health, and comfort, all of those things. And your point that that wearing the stocking even with performance doesn't make your leg hotter, and I think that's what you said. That's a major point that people need to consider.
Absolutely.
That being said, and your presence in the stores here in Hawaii and in other places across the country, and of course at the events, is a great idea. But we have a lot of knowledge-thirsty people. What about a website? What about information where people can go to learn a little bit more about this division of your company of CET Compression Sportswear? Where is there a consumer location?
Well, we're really easy to find online at cepcompression.com.
Okay.
It's our main site. It's our corporate site. And there's also a dealer locator on there where you can plug in your zip code and find a local retailer in your area as well. So,
well, I want to tell you that we certainly appreciate you being able to spend some time with us today. And we call the show Healthy Veins, Healthy Legs because of that. And like Dr. Kistner explained when we first started, he's got a lot of staffers and folks at his place. They're not going through venous disease, but they're wearing compression.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I want to go back to a question that Mike asked, though, and that how long do these stockings last, and what do they cost? I mean, it's $100 for every pair, or what are we talking about?
What's the ballpark here?
So our most popular styles are our progressive compression sock, our run socks. They're about $60 at retail in the stores, your local retail stores. We also make a calf sleeve product, which is like a sock with no foot on it.
Yeah, and that's something people might like. Yeah.
Yeah, so that we recommend that for active use only. We don't want you to wear that for recovery. It's really good for riding a bike or running or playing tennis for that matter or golfing, as long as you're moving. Those retail for $40. And just like our Medi products on our medical side, we have what we call a 6-month everyday guarantee. And what that means is that if you wear any one of our compression products every single day for 6 months straight, we guarantee the rate of compression and the compression profile. And the compression profile is where it's tight versus where it's not as tight on the product.
Out of curiosity, Brent, and I think it's important to note, because I'm a regular wearer, and even though I gag every time I buy a pair of socks, I do know that the see me now, see me later. How about the regular maintenance of them? You say you can wear them every day for 6 months. How often do you need to wash them? Is it obviously the amount of use and the amount of sweat and all that stuff, but will they stand up to that kind of washing?
Absolutely. That's what we actually want you to do. Is we want you to wash that garment. If you wear them every single day, there's a good chance you're probably going to buy a second pair.
Yeah, of course.
You're going to have you're going to get a full year out of it, basically. But basically, you would wash your products. We recommend washing them just like you would wash any of your performance clothing, whether it's a pair of running shorts or workout apparel. It's typically a cold water wash with a light tumble dry. Washing them actually prolongs the durability and the quality of the product, because it removes a lot of the dirt and the product and the sweat that actually deteriorates the yarns and the fibers. It also, a little hit of the dryer will actually help bring the elasticity of that lycra back and give it that brand new feel, that tight compression that the customer likes, and put them on each time.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, treat them nice, they treat you nice, right?
Oh, well, one other question. What about the small, medium, and large? I mean, if you're talking about athletes, some of them have a huge calf muscle, and other people have a thin leg. And what's your recommendation for sizing?
Right.
This?
Well, our sizing protocol, it comes right from the medical side of our business. In fact, you'll find a lot of brands in the market that they just want to know your shoe size, and they're going to tell you what kind of compression you wear. Well, I can tell you right now, and any footballologist out there will tell you that your shoe size has nothing to do with your venous system. So the only way we can actually make sure you're getting the right level of compression is if we can measure the circumference of the leg. So all of our sizing is based on a measurement of the circumference around the calf muscle Once we have that number, you can look on the box, and it'll tell you what size you wear. For men, it's a size 3, a size 4, or a size 5, and that pertains to a certain circumference. And for women, it goes 2, 3, and 4. What's very interesting to point out is no matter what the gender, no matter what ethnic group, height, or weight, the most popular circumference that we see, and it's about 58% of every measurement we do, is right around 37 centimeters at the calf. So it's a very common size. Almost 60% of the population wears the same size when it comes to CPT compression.
How about length?
We have women's length. They're different than men's length.
I see.
By about an inch, so that we have the ability to measure from the ankle bone up to just below the kneecap.
So if some guy has a great big calf and a little tiny ankle, what do you do?
Well, our measurements are purely based off of the calf circumference. So when we measure the calf, it automatically will fall into that size range.
Okay.
If we do have a customer that has, for instance, I'm 5'8", I wear a size 10 shoe. Well, my wife is 5'6". We can actually wear the same socks because when I wear the women's socks, it's a little bit shorter in the cuff, and because I'm only 5'8", I don't have that problem with it coming up over my knee. So in many cases, if we have men that are below 5'9" and they wear, say, a size 9 shoe or smaller, we would recommend putting them in a women's sock because it's going to fit them better.
Boy, that's interesting because I'm sitting here biting my tongue because what I got here is a 13 wide, and a big old stump, tree stump for a leg. So it's very, very difficult sometimes, even in regular stockings for some of us. And I find that the compression made a big difference. I mean, if you get a compression stocking that's too small, you walk down the street throbbing, and obviously that's not good for you.
Exactly.
Have you had any? Go ahead.
We also have the ability to measure for a custom product, which I know, Dr. Kistner, you're familiar with on the custom side of the medical side of the business.
Yeah, right.
But we do have a custom recovery product where the customer can go into a retail store that's authorized to measure for this. They take 41 circumferential and length measurements of the athlete, and in about a 7 to 10 day turnaround time, we can knit a custom recovery garment for the customer.
Wow, that's great. By the way, when you say knitting, where does the product come from?
All of the CEP socks and calf sleeves that you see at retail are knitted at our corporate headquarters in Bayreuth, Germany.
Wow.
Bavaria.
And is there any experience with the sock doing damage, being too tight, causing sores, breaking, or not wearing over a sore? Is it good or bad, or what do you have to say about that?
We really, the biggest concern people have when they come into an expo, for instance, like at the Honolulu Marathon Expo, is their concern is that they're going to get blisters in their feet because they're trying a new sock. And that's always the concern. And they have what they call the golden rule. And the golden rule is you never try anything for the first time on your event day. So the golden rule, you don't go buy a pair of socks at the expo and then go expect to have a great Honolulu Marathon. But I can't tell you that the golden rule, how many times the golden rule is broken, and every time we get the positive feedback that I couldn't believe how much pressure my legs felt in the last 20% of the event. I can't believe I wasn't sore at all in the hours or days after the event, and
Wow.
the only thing that changed was my compression sock.
That's a
So
true testament, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. We're going to sell a little over 500,000 pairs of these socks to consumers in the U.S. market this year alone. So this is speaking to a lot of people at the athletic side of the population, but the adoption rate is kind of magnifying itself with every single event we go to.
Now, one other question, then. What am I going to look like? I look like somebody in a bunch of bandages when I go out in the stocking? That's embarrassing.
That's a great one. I used to hate that. I'm not going to wear. I had one of those horrible things, Brent. There was one of those Velcro things wrapping all. I can't. Now I got my socks. I love them. What are we talking about? Colors and shades and all that stuff.
Well, I tell you, what we're known for is really these bright colors that we bring in, and not to sound like we're trying to be fashionable, but one of our biggest concerns in entering the market was trying to sell a knee-high sock to an active population that was typically wearing shorts, and no socks are very low-cut socks.
Yeah, that's right.
But in the beginning, it kind of kicked in as kind of a fad because you saw these people wearing knee-high socks, and then colors started to hit. We do very bright pinks and greens and yellows. Black, of course, is our number one selling color. We do the reds, the blues, and the whites. But we've also incorporated a sense of reflective elements that we put on some of our socks as well, so that in low light or in no light situations, you have that safety of reflectivity on the sock as well.
That's terrific.
what you'll see is, when you go out and look at a local running event and look at how many people are wearing compression products on their lower legs, and you'll see that it's no longer a fad. This has been adopted by the industry and by the consumer as a viable product that people feel a benefit from.
Well, where
Because
can we
if they
see
didn't,
all?
they wouldn't wear them.
Where can we see all this on the internet or where?
Yeah, let's go back to this cepcompression.com, right?
Is that it?
Yep.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Hey, well, listen, thanks so much for spending some time with us. I know that people are going to go out and check it out. And you did mention earlier that the product is available in Hawaii. And that will you guys have a presence at the marathon this year?
We will have an expo there. We're partnering with a local retailer in Honolulu, and they'll be there representing CEP at the expo.
Well, let's get them to take a look. What's the local retailer in Honolulu?
We're working with Island Triathlon and Bike.
Perfect. Hey, well, Brent, it's a little bit of a joy getting to know you and your company. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you so much. Have a good one, guys.
Yeah,
See
you
you
too.
again.
There you go. Interesting stuff, Doc, because what we're talking about is something that is an elected thing to do. And I know that you've explained before that not everybody in your office is a patient, but most of them are wearing stockings because they see patients and they say, well, I got a 30% chance of this happening to me, so what can I do up front?
Well, right, and when we see patients and start to talk to them about wearing stockings, almost invariably they'll shudder and say, "Oh, well, I live in Hawaii; it's too hot." And then we point out to them that we're all wearing them, and then they say, "Well, but you're in air conditioning." So Brent's answer that it can be a cooling effort. That's fantastic.
I want to tell you something. I would agree that if somebody was outside, they may be uncomfortable. But as you know now, for the greater part of a year, I've been wearing these. And I get up very early in the morning. I mean, I usually put my stockings on at about 4:15, 4:30 in the morning. And by the time I get home, it's 2, 3 in the afternoon. And I don't fly them right off. If I go shopping, I leave them on. If I'm going to go out that night, sometimes I've had them on for 15 or so hours. I don't really notice the discomfort outside as I thought I would. I thought there was going to be like wearing big wool, long underwear.
Yeah, right.
It's really not like that. So I'm not sure that that's a valid complaint that I'm going to take from anybody anymore.
Maybe if they look good enough, people won't be so concerned about that.
I'm not going to rush out and get the orange and the fuchsia ones that he's talking about.
Yeah, but think of the soccer players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they come out with these colored socks, and it looks athletic. And,
Yep. Well, what about guys that walkers or joggers? I think it's great. The more fluorescent, the better. Let's let me get hit by a car. But I think that when people make the transition, look, we're going to talk. Let's now talk about the other side. Let's talk about a patient who absolutely critically needs these rather than nice to have to make you perform better. What sort of people in your practice that come to see you, not to run a better marathon, but where are compression stockings used in treatment?
Compression stockings are used from A to Z in treatment of venous disease, both varicose veins and blood clots. I mean, they're just integral to successful treatment. And it's a common discussion among experts in venous disease how you get patients to comply with a recommendation to use the stocking.
Sure.
So the doc has data, and the data says people do better in stockings, so the doc tells the patient that.
Wear
and
the
patient
stockings,
says, they usually don't say it, but they often just don't put the stockings on, and you can speak to that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to say to the doctor in the office, oh, yeah, doc, don't worry, Dr. Kistner, I'm on it.
Well, I hear
and
that
then
every day, yeah.
You walk out the door, you don't even open the package.
The major thing, they come back for their next visit, and they come back without the stockings. They say, well, do you wear your stockings? Oh, yes, every day, but you don't have them on today. Well, but it's coming to the doctor's office.
Yeah, I don't need them today. But let me tell you this. You've often heard, folks, the expression, oh, so-and-so is off his meds. He stopped taking his meds. When it's amazing what happens when you stop wearing the stockings. In other words, you can do, if you wear them religiously every day like I try to do, I guess let's say that you go on a trip and you conveniently forget them. I'm not going to do that when I'm on my trip. Then you come home, it's been a week or 10 days, you're almost starting over again, aren't you?
You mean from what standpoint?
From the standpoint of
health?
From the health of your condition.
If you're swell,
if you're
that's
swollen,
what you're saying.
yeah.
I see. Yeah,
Because now you've been swollen for a week,
Oh yeah.
You got to start all over.
Oh no,
again.
no. Your point is well taken. That's a no-no.
Yep.
Because the first 12 hours you're on your legs without stockings. If you have lymphedema or something like that, your leg can be all the way back to a really serious swelling problem.
Well, I got to tell you, I had some really skinny legs a couple of weeks ago. I forgot to tell you this. I got home from a function after being up all day, and I was just tired. So I went into my office and I checked my email like I always do, and then I went. I hadn't even got totally changed or anything. I laid down on the couch for a minute, fell asleep, slept through the night with my stockings on. So now that meant when I woke up at 4 o'clock, I'd had on for 24 hours. My legs were like pencils.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute because, a lot of advice is don't wear an elastic stocking when you lie down.
Yeah, I didn't mean to. I thought I just forgot to take them off, really. Or I passed out, sleepy.
Well, I was going to say in practice, one of the things I've noticed is that the non-stocking compression, there's some stockings, some compressions are wraps, and they're not elastic compression the way a stocking is. A stocking presses in against you, but these other things prevent you from swelling. Wait.
That's a very important point.
Okay.
What the stocking does is it compresses me. Squeezes me. What the wrap does is it prevents me from swelling. In other words, it's so tight around the leg that if my leg tries to swell, it can't because it runs into this barrier.
Well, yeah, just think
Is that about right?
Yeah, well, so when you put a stocking on, it's not as big as your leg. When it gets on your leg, it's wrapped around, so it's squeezing.
Right, squeezing.
And it's made of elastic material. Not the wraps. The wraps, the idea of the wrap is get your leg down and then put something tight around it, firm around it.
To keep it down.
To keep it down.
Gotcha. But you know what I think is interesting? And that's why I was glad you asked our guest, Brent, about sizing and length. Because I notice sometimes when I put mine on that there's too much material somewhere. And if you don't address that and smooth that out, it can like gouge you. And I don't know how or if that's damaging.
Oh, well, let's talk about that. Do you notice it gouging at the ankle?
Well, I used to, but now I'm smart enough that I use my little rubber gloves and I pull it up.
So you don't let it get that crease?
No, because that hurts.
So let's talk about that crease. If you measure, scientifically, if you measure the pressure immediately under that crease, you'll find that it goes massively up.
Yeah.
And it can cause, to answer the second thing, if you ignore that, you can come back with a red spot there, and if your circulation isn't perfect or you wear it too long, you can get an ulcer, a sore there.
Yeah, a sore.
It can wear out the skin. So it's a very important thing, and it's all in the physics of compression, and so that if you have a layer of compression on your leg, and then you lay another layer of similar compression on your leg, you'll double the compression.
See, that's the point I'm trying to make, because when I first got them, the first pair I had, and not knowing how to put them on, I tended to pull them up too tight. So I mean too much. So that by my knee there was a bunch of stuff.
Common error.
Yeah. So one of the things that I did one day was I doubled it down about 3 or 4 inches. I just when you're a kid you turn your socks down.
Then you got
holy smokes! I got to work. My leg was throbbing. It was so sore because I had really doubled the pressure.
Yeah, you created a tourniquet.
Yeah.
Couldn't
wait to get those. Almost couldn't get them off.
But your other point was depends on the length of the stocking. So if the stocking's too long and it tends to pull down and crease at the ankle, or if it's a cheap stocking.
Yeah.
I use that word, but I think it's right. We see some of the lower priced elastic stockings. So if you say the stocking market, a good high quality medical grade support stocking might cost $80 to $110.
Right.
A cheap one might cost $30 to $50. Well, some of the people who put on the cheap one will get these creases in their leg, in their ankle and foot, and they wind up spending a good deal of time and pain.
Oh yeah.
With sores on their leg. So we give the advice to, if you're going to buy a support stocking, get a good one.
Okay, now let's go back a bit.
Well fitted.
Let's go back a bit, and we're going to drum that into you forever. And I've known since then, sometimes, you don't fit the chart. You're not a small, a medium, a large, or an extra large. You're small over there and a medium in the middle and a double extra large up at the top because you got weird legs or whatever. That's when it really pays to go to a professional and get a custom sock. Even though they cost a bunch more, it's really worth it.
It is.
Yeah.
And but let me give you another tip, and it's really practical, and I think it's more and more practical, and some of the companies recognize it. And that is, the fact is that if you put one layer of 14 millimeters compression, and you put another layer of 14 millimeters compression,
now you got 28.
Then you got 28. Okay. So you can use that because one of the major complaints about stockings is they're hard to put on. So give people 2 14-millimeter stockings and tell them to double them, and they'll get the therapeutic compression without the hassle.
So what you're doing is wearing a double pair.
You wear a double pair.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Here's one thing that I do, folks. People ask me about this. I'm not, like a GQ clothes model. But, I'm in a business where I have to get, pretty much dressed for work every day. I wear a tie 2 or 3 days a week. These stocks come in black, sort of a lame khaki, and they come in sort of a dark brown. I actually have a bunch of socks that are in the proper colors for my fashion, so I can coordinate my accessories that go on top of them. But I've been very careful because the socks, I got big feet. And so I have to wear large socks. Sometimes having a compression stocking on already, putting on another stocking over it makes it too tight.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, and so it bothers me. But
you mean in the stocking or in the foot?
On the leg.
On the leg.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now here's another thing. A lot of times when people take these things off, I've heard this question before, but it needs to be brought up again for those of you that are wearing them. If you have that ring around your leg where the fold was or anything, how damaging is that? Obviously, you don't want it you said you could even get a sore out of it, so you better be careful.
That depends a lot on the individual. So if you have a great big 250-pound man,
which is me, big old legs.
Well, so
tree trunks.
Your leg and tissues can take a lot of pressure, maybe 60, 80 millimeters of pressure.
Wow. Okay. What about a frail little lady, like maybe
So you got a 90-pound lady, maybe older. We call it senile skin, but the skin gets thin and the supporting tissues get weak. 10 millimeters pressure may be too much for that person. And by being too much pressure, it means first thing they get pain, and then if they get pain and they don't, maybe they don't feel the pain because their nerves don't work well or they're old or whatever. But if they leave it on for a period of time, that can turn into a sore that causes the skin to actually die in the point of highest pressure. So this depends on the build of the individual, the strength of their tissues, the supporting tissues at the point of pressure, and so many variables. And the golden rule is if you're putting compression on your leg and you're uncomfortable, take the compression off because it may do damage, and then check it out.
Okay, now I want to tell you folks that there is a learning curve and there is a comfort curve. And in the early stages, these things are not that comfortable. You got to, sometimes it's a struggle to put them on. Of course, when I went and got these the first time at Dr. Kistner's office, he put them on. That didn't feel so bad, did it? No, it feels great. I had to put them on myself the next day. There's this little trick I learned from Honolulu Orthopedic Supply, where I happen to go and get mine, and you can get them in there's other places. But they're these little gloves that look like kitchen gloves, Doc, and they got little nubbies on the fingers. And boy, oh boy, if I'm without that thing, I don't want to put those socks on because it's hard.
You still use those?
I use them every day. And they're like so cheap, I buy 2 or 3 pairs at a time. They usually last about 3 months, and then the little nubs wear off. But it makes
do you
life.
Massage the stocking on?
I absolutely do.
Yeah.
I pull it up real, in one motion, and then I start at the toes and I massage it up to my ankle and then up my calf a little bit until I smooth it out all the way up the calf. And then sometimes, so that you avoid that bunchy top like the banana trees that die, you do the same thing from the top down to where it's not taut, stretched over your skin. It's sort of even over your skin. And then you can I wear them sometimes 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, don't feel them.
Okay, so, clearly you're an expert at putting them on, but, there's a learning curve, and it's very difficult to to talk to people about it and to have them learn from it, because everybody's been putting on their socks for a long time.
Okay.
So they don't need a lesson in it, but they do need a lesson.
What about for caregivers? Because I know one of the things that we've been procrastinating about, one of these days we're going to do a little bit of a video and put it on your Kistner Vein Clinic website so that people can actually see this, or they can see it on a little recorder at the office.
Yeah,
but
let's put it on the airplane, too.
yeah, exactly on the airplane. But here's what I think is really important. We're getting to a point where a lot of us are getting into their golden years and trying to have a good lifestyle, and a lot of that is circulation related, and a lot of it is addressable by compression. But somebody is either too frail or maybe too weak to be able to put them on, so they're going to rely on the caregiver. Are there tricks that you can show somebody that is going to be able to put them on their charge, or the person that they're giving care to?
Very good question, and totally apt, because it's a real big problem in the older population, and all people who age enough probably get around to have some swelling in their leg. And they get more and more infirm and more unable to put them on. And then if they get obese and all this, so arthritis and all kinds of things get in the way of donning stockings. So there are wraps.
Mm-hmm.
So, wait a minute. Within the stocking industry, you can go to the principle of 2 lighter stockings rather than 1 stronger stocking. So we already talked about that.
Yeah, which is doubling up. But in actual fact, reducing by 50% the hassle of putting them on.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, if you put like a nylon stocking on your leg and then try to put your stocking on, it's much easier because of friction.
Yeah, now that's another thing that I did, gang, in the very beginning. I was having issues with that. And I also, my legs are smaller now than when I first started doing this. So they're a little bit bigger, but that was a little bit of a hassle. But you do actually have very inexpensive hose or stuff that you put on, and then the thing just slides right on, like lubricates.
All right, and then another thing that I think is coming on, and that is the use of a sleeve on the leg,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't go over the heel and into the foot.
Gotcha.
Now there is there's a venous plexus in the foot, so we think it's ideal to use a foot compression. But the foot compression is not nearly as important as a calf. So you can do just calf compression, and you could put an easy to put place don stocking on, and then put one of these calf sleeves over it, and then you got both things.
Right, and that's what I did with one of them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Well, one pair I had didn't have the toes. It just had it maybe about half your foot.
Okay.
You know, and they were easier to put on a lot, and they were easier to put a sock over so that you were color coordinated.
Well, now let's go back to our guest today, the CE people. They have sleeves, and a lot of the companies have come out with sleeves, and so I think that's going to be a coming deal.
Yeah, he actually called it the no foot, which is so you can imagine there's a pair of stockings that go down to your ankle and then stop.
Right.
You know, and then there's no stocking. And then I know that a lot of women are used to wearing leggings and stuff like that sort of do the same thing, right? There's a little strap that goes under their foot.
Yeah.
But it's not a sock. It just holds the pants in place.
And now some people say, well, there's some arguments against that, but they're probably not valid. Anyway, it's a developmental thing that will help. Now, but the next big category is the stocking itself may just be too much hassle to put on, and there's a limitation to a stocking because the stocking is what it is. You can't vary it. Change that to a wrap with Velcro attachments, and now you have something where you can adjust the compression, so you can bring it to tighter or looser. We have a lot of patients who use these wraps, and so they don't have to put it over the foot. They put it from the ankle up. Then they have these have the Velcro strap, and they can pull it real tight when they're going to get up and walk, because you need a higher pressure. They can loosen it up and leave it on comfortably overnight.
I think this is important because I do know that there's some categories of venous disease where you absolutely must do this. In other words, it's not an option. You must do this.
That's right.
And I've seen a number of patients and talked to them in your waiting room before. And now that I'm out in the marketplace and people know a little bit about the show and they talk to me about this, I see, what you're doing is the right thing. And a lot of people, they're fashion conscious. And these things, I mean, they don't look the best, but boy, do they provide comfort. And all you need to do is put something over them, and nobody knows they're there. Because, Doc, aren't they they're a lot less bulky than they were in the beginning because the material they're using is better. So they don't have to have these huge, like ratchet things to put them on. They get the compression with Velcro.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They started out with a unacceptable cosmetically and physically thick sort of thing, but now they're slick and thin, and Velcro has been the big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But the Medi company, the company that makes these CEP compression stockings we had today, they also have a line that's called the Circade. It was a previous company, and they have these beautiful garments that go around your leg and are fitted. And they can be for more serious or less serious problems. So it's a big industry that adds much more adaptability to the whole field of compression therapy.
I'm going to suggest that people look into this. Like, for instance, and Dr. Kistner likes this because there's another doctor that used to practice here in Hawaii, Dr. Eckloff, who was, I guess, not only was a partner of yours or, a pal, but you guys practiced together. But when I met him and when I was first referred to your office years and years ago, I had these huge, cumbersome, ugly things that I walked out of there thinking to myself that's the extent of that visit. I tried wearing them, and I had that stigma or that remembrance. And then fast forward 10 years to when I come back, the whole thing's changed.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's been the kind that originally were given to me, they're not even used anymore. They've been replaced by better materials than Velcro.
What? Oh.
Yeah,
you had the strap to them.
Yeah, the straps, man. It was a terrible thing.
that.
Oh, man, that was awful.
Oh, that's
it was like, that Burt Reynolds movie, The Longest Yard, when he takes him 4 hours to get ready for a football game with all of the devices that he had to put on.
Well, I think going forward that this industry will get smarter and smarter, and they'll use various things like pressure monitors, so we'll know that people have a proper prescription.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could happen, and it could happen even at the commercial level where people knew what to do.
I was hoping you could explain. We mentioned earlier when we were talking to Brant Ferguson that there is actually a measuring device that you used on me to determine the amount of pressure that I was getting from my stocking. That's pretty unique, isn't it? And tell me a little bit about what it is and how it works.
Well, it's a manometer. That means it's a pressure measuring thing, and
but it goes on your skin, and your stock goes over it, so it's like it's way inside, so you can actually get a pretty decent measurement.
Well, more than that, it's a flat disc, and it has a little bit of air in it, so it gives a fairly accurate measurement, and we call it interface pressure. So this is the pressure exerted by the garment against the skin, because it's on the skin. And so you can put it in. You can leave it in if you wanted to, but we usually put it in and just check the pressure. But with that, we can tell all kinds of things, Mike, like how tight your stocking is. But we know when we put a bandage on your leg, we can now adjust it to whether it's 7, 14, 20, 30 millimeters of mercury over a sore. Mm-hmm. And we can equate that with your circulation and what to do. So it becomes reproducible, scientific prescription, very professional.
Yeah, it's like they say, you come a long way. You come a long way. That being said, and I guess a way to finish this up is that if there's somebody out there that's listening just because they like us, or they're listening with somebody that is a patient just for knowledge and they're in good shape, it'd be a good idea to go out and check this stuff out. And just think how easier it would be in the profession if people were to start taking care of themselves with a little bit of compression a little earlier in their lives. Maybe not needed, but they want better performance, not treatment.
Well, people like hairdressers or salespeople on their feet all the time.
Give it a thought.
They should really try it out. Yeah.
Okay, now that being said, we hope you've learned a little bit from that. Bottom line, though, is don't let the how many dollars it costs do you, because once again, Doc, maybe you can explain, these things are not like a pair of socks when you're buying 6 pairs of socks in a bag for $14.
Yeah, you have to think of it as a treatment. So you'd spend plenty for a prescription. You'd spend plenty for a good night out for a dinner. For goodness sake, get a good pair of stockings.
There you go. And that's the way we're going to end the program today. We hope you've enjoyed yourself and you've learned a little something. We invite you to tell everybody you know about what we do here every week. And in the meantime, if you want more information and you want to suggest a subject for the show, go to the KistnerVeinClinic.com, KISTNER VeinClinic.com. Thanks so much for listening. For everybody at the clinic and Dr. Bob Kistner, I'm Mike Buck. Thank you for listening to Healthy Veins, Healthy Legs. We'll see you again next time.
Thanks for listening to our program today. And for more valuable Healthy Veins, Healthy Legs information, visit us online at www.KistnerVeinClinic.com.